So Curtis, very very nice to meet you. A pleasure being with you today, and I appreciate the time and the opportunity to speak during South by. So I appreciate that. So let's start kind of hearing a little bit about your own career and how you got to where you did today. You've been with PepsiCo for a minute, and
Couple minutes.
obviously they value very much. And like, what kind of lessons have you learned, and what did that journey look like to get you to the leadership position you're in today?
Sure. Man, it's strange as I think back my what is 20-year career so far. I've worked for two companies, the world's largest company and Walmart, and then PepsiCo, which is also a pretty large company. And in that experience, what's been unique for me is that I've always found myself drawn to roles that had more of an entrepreneurial nature, being involved in rebranding and developing a consumer hub within Walmart private brands, or launching the e-commerce business at Frito-Lay, working on turnaround brands. For me, the ability to come in and kind of make a difference has driven me. So even though I've worked in two large corporations, the roles that I've had throughout that process have the ones in which I've had the most fun are those ones where you have a chance to kind of do something unique and create something new with the resources of, say, a Fortune 500 company. So I think throughout my 20-year career, 5 years at Walmart, business school here at Texas, and then 10 years at PepsiCo, I've had the opportunity to work on a lot of different brands and do a lot of different things. And every year and a half to 2 years, they give me a new opportunity that allows me to continue learning, which keeps me interested in, and I love it. So for me, being drawn into marketing and working most of my career in retail and CPG, it's been a great fit. And seeing how consumers respond to projects that I work on is a ton of fun, and you're able to see that immediate feedback, which kind of fuels me.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. I mean, it's a recipe I think a lot of people could learn from, like finding those things that you're drawn to that are going to continue for you to be energized and motivated to do new things, but also you're seeing real impact in the work that you're kind of doing. So. Congrats on that journey and all that success.
It's been
fun. I guess this comes more from marketing strategy kind of standpoint. The landscape continues to evolve, and I think it's accelerated even more so in recent years. And there's so many opportunities to consume content. Consumer behaviors have changed. How have you approach this from a marketing strategy standpoint to kind of address that?
I mean, in terms of like, how are we staying up to speed with kind of how consumers are changing and what we're doing?
Exactly.
It's constant. It never ends. And it is, you have to pay attention, you have to listen, you have to find data wherever you can get it. And then you have to continue to kind of build that into your kind of repertoire of, hey, here's how I'm thinking about the business. Here's what's here are the problems that I'm trying to solve. Being at this Brand Innovators event has been great because you have a chance to hear perspectives from a number of different folks from different industries and different roles. And so I'm able to see, okay, hey, that's a similar challenge, or okay, maybe what I'm dealing with is unique to, say, Doritos or snack category. And so I think continuing to try to get a pulse for what is going on and staying up to speed is critical. And then what you have to do is kind of file away those learnings. And as you're having kind of strategy discussions about where do we go, you need to start checking those against what are those mental notes that I've captured to see how is the world changing, and are we approaching it in the right way that's going to help us address those challenges.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think in recent past, clearly technology and data have really been elevated in terms of their role in decision-making process. Of course, okay, I've avoided saying AI in the last couple interviews, but it's real, it's here, it's happening, to an extent. But like, how with data technology, things like AI, how do you balance that with creativity?
The answer to that is exactly why I wanted to do brand management in the first place and why I love it. Marketing is that balance between right brain and left brain. and it's the art and it's the science, and how you bring those together is kind of where the magic happens. And that works great for me because I'm math, like not my thing. But when I can leverage data and insights, which I really enjoy, to developing, some sort of a creative campaign, that's what I love. And so, it's trust data, but also trust your gut. Yeah. And there was a story, I had a business school professor who, she was talking about consumers want low sodium. And I think she was working on green beans or some sort of a canned good. Like, the data says consumers want low sodium. We need to go with low sodium. We need to launch a line. And her mentor, boss, was like, well, yeah, consumers say one thing, but the behavior is going to be a little different. And so, sure enough, they moved forward with that strategy of launching like this line of like no sodium or low sodium green beans, and it just tanked. It like did not succeed. And so the lesson from that is like you have to trust the data, but if your gut is telling you something different and how the consumer is going to respond, you have to be able to take that into account. You can't just look at the numbers or look at it and be like, okay, well, here's the output. Let's do it. You have to bounce that against what is your gut telling you. And if your gut telling you is, well, maybe consumers are going to act differently than what they will tell you in a survey, then you have to trust that and be able to use that in your decision making. But that's not to say that don't use data. Data is there, it's the foundation, you have to build off it, but you have to also trust the other side of your brain to look at that science or the art part of it and understand, how do I move forward with the right information and in the right context.
Yeah. And sometimes that data can kind of validate that instinct too.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So yeah, awesome. I love that. Again, it's always a balance. It's a marriage. They have to work together. It's one of the things why I love working at Captiv8, because we're an influencer marketing solution. Obviously, we're dealing with creators every day, so we get to take advantage of their creativity, their own unique voices, the unique communities that they touch. But it's all enabled through our platform. So it kind of helps us find the right people on the outset, but then also kind of validate it on the back end. And it's just a constant state of kind of learn, build, and optimize. And, and really, they need to work together. So that resonates. So I guess going a little bit more back into kind of like within the org, how you manage your team. How do you, Pepsi's a legacy brand. It's been around for a very long time. It's got tradition. It's got foundation. You guys have your company mission, et cetera. How do you kind of maintain that and as the foundation, but also enable the team to be innovative? Like, again, I guess it goes back to another balancing act, but kind of being innovative, but within the maybe constraints isn't the right word, but aligned with the company kind of goals and mission.
Oh, that's a good one. Let me take a moment to kind of collect my thought. Yeah. In an established company, and Doritos has been around for 64 years. There's obviously a lot of history. There's a lot of legacy. There's context.
That's actually crazy. I don't
64 years.
64 years.
Yeah.
Doritos.
2026 will be our 65th anniversary.
Wow.
And so there's a lot there. And obviously within the context, and that's something that I think is incredibly important to how I approach and our team approaches kind of every day, is what is the context of what's going on around you, what's the context of like what your organization is working on, what the goals are, and then how do you achieve what you are trying to do within that broader strategy. And so I think leaving room for creativity and trying to find those moments for creativity to come through is vital. And so as we think about annual planning, having my team have an opportunity to think about, okay, how, let's say, put one of them in charge of how does Doritos show up in food more broadly? What are some ideas that we could do in 2026 to, hey, go ahead and sketch out some ideas and think about how would that come to life, or how does Doritos show up in gaming, and giving opportunities to, hey, here's kind of the sandbox, so to speak, and would love to come up with some ideas. So I think we have to create moments for our teams to be creative. The agency briefing process is also brilliant because you get a chance to bring in these incredibly talented creative conceptors and help you try to solve a problem problem. So be closely working with those agencies also helps us kind of think about and be creative in that sense. And so I think you have to leave room for and time for creativity to build in, but you also have to make sure that we're very clear and laddering up to like what's the overall objective of the organization and how do we fit and how do we ensure that we are being creative, but it's also achieving and helping us deliver on the overall strategy. So I think as long as you're in kind of lockstep with the rest of the organization and what the strategy is and how that ladders up, you're going to be successful and have that room to be able to innovate.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I guess with that 64, soon to be 65-year legacy, and obviously your part there, we were exposed for that 20-year period, correct? For Doritos, or?
Oh, for me?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I've been at PepsiCo for 10 years.
Oh, 10 years. Okay.
And I started as an associate I started as an intern on Doritos and then came back as an associate marketing manager. Had a few different roles, and then about a year and a half later, or a year and a half ago, I came back as the brand director for Doritos.
Well, I guess where I was going with that, like, over that time period that you've been touching Doritos, is there like a campaign or an initiative that you were part of or even led that you really think was like a turning point? Or
I can think of I've got two for you.
Okay.
And one is last October we launched the first permanent branded restaurant for Doritos brand at Crypto.com Arena in LA. And my team was a part of building that, and it's how do we expand Doritos beyond an afternoon snack, right? Because that's what everybody associates us with. And so developing that menu and working with our chefs and our partners to develop that restaurant I've been very proud of that work, and it's still brand new. So we have no idea how it's going to go, but I think for us, and that's I think our company's ambition of being a food company, not just a snack company. Yeah. That's a step in the direction that Doritos had an opportunity to take kind of first. So I'm very proud of that and being a part of a great team that brought that to life. So highly recommend you check it out if you're at a Lakers or a Kings game.
Well, a little maybe relevant side note, yesterday at kind of in between lunch and dinner, I stopped by at a restaurant and I had shishito peppers that were encrusted in Dorito.
So that's
so I think there's interesting ways to kind of integrate a brand like that.
And what's funny about that is that our Doritos After Dark is the name of the restaurant, and we moved in that direction because we saw our consumers using Doritos in their recipes. That's one of the most popular topics on TikTok, right? Is food, and people cooking. And here's what I created. And so we were kind of inspired by our consumers to say, well, okay, if our consumers are using Doritos in fun and unique ways that help kind of enhance their meals, why can't we? And so that's that. Go back to your question. I think that's one of the things that's been very fun is taking that consumer insight and that consumer behavior and then saying, okay, cool, let's run with this and let's see what we can do. The other way I'll answer your question is Crash the Super Bowl. That's something I was involved in. If you're not familiar, it was a campaign that ran for 10 years, started in 2006, where we basically handed over advertising's biggest platform, the Super Bowl, to our consumers and said, you create an ad that shows us your love for Doritos. Yeah. When I was an associate brand manager, when I first joined the company, I had the opportunity to run the 10th and final year of Crash the Super Bowl, and then we closed it down. 10 was a nice round number. When we started that program, YouTube was in its infancy. The whole idea of user-generated concept wasn't really a thing. But after 10 years, it was like, okay, yeah, there's a lot of creators out there, and has it run its course? And so we decided, and it was fun to be in that room and in the conversation saying, okay, what do we do with this program? So we decided to close it down. And then 9 years later, this past fall, we announced the return of Crash the Super Bowl. And what's interesting is that gap. Think about the number of content creators that were around in 2016 versus today. Yeah. And I didn't run Crash the Super Bowl this year. I have an incredibly talented team and teammate that led that program. But it was fun for me to be a part of like, okay, hey, we're going to close it down. We have to end it on a bang. But let's go ahead and wait to see how consumers respond and change over the next 9 or 10 years before we bring it back. And now that there's so many content creators and they're showing their love and their passion and incredibly talented people, bringing it back led to some incredible results this year. And so I'm proud to kind of see that that program come back, because how consumers have changed in that span and how they generate content and advocate for the brands that they love is something that I think they do in some instances a much better job than I can in describing why and how do you love Doritos.
Yeah. And maybe this is a good way to wrap it up. The intent was like, what are you excited about, like in the present, but as you kind of evolve into the future. This case study is kind of interesting because, you brought something back, but into a new world where you have this mass opportunity with, very creative content creators, and it just it creates that advocacy, it creates that emotional connection, cultural relevancy, all those things. So maybe I answered the question partially, but is that an area that like you see as kind of a really big part of Doritos' strategy, kind of now and as you kind of go into the future? And if not, like what else are you excited about?
Are you saying kind of
like just
putting the consumer
with content creators today?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's what has made Doritos successful. And I'm very blessed to be just a very small part of that 64-year history. So my job is don't screw it up. But I think what Doritos has done a great job, and this is back in 2006, was putting the consumer at the very center of the decision making. That's what, hey, here's the Super Bowl. We're going to give it to you. You tell us what works. And for that team, it was a nerve-wracking experience because you had already bought the media and you didn't know what you were going to get. And so I think that's something that Doritos did really well at the time. And as a brand, I think we've done a good job of putting the consumer at the center of everything that we do, and then being sure to listen and pay attention to what are they saying, how are they interacting with the brands, what are their needs, so that we continue to deliver against that. So start with the consumer, put it at the center of your overall strategy, and then make sure that you're paying attention, because consumers are going to change. You talked about shishito peppers with Doritos Crust around them. 15 years ago, shishito peppers, I'm sure there's a lot of folks who couldn't, it's way too spicy, I can't do it. But like tastes change. And so when we're thinking about flavor innovation, it's the same way. Pay attention, make sure the consumer's at the center of it, and you're going to be okay. And so I'm lucky that Doritos has been able to do that over the course of decades. And so, our job is to make sure that we continue to do that.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. This was a really fun conversation. I'm a little envious of the brand you get to work with. It presents a lot of really cool opportunities, but it was really a pleasure to
speak
thank
you.
to
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.